Hi there, I'm Lee from Ignite Your Being. Now, I often get asked about my yoga practice and how I kind of start the day. Now, when it comes to my yoga in the morning, I do tend to do a lot of the same thing every day. Just some simple key moves just to get my body moving in the morning. And I just find that's become a habit, so it's just easy to do. I don't have to think about it. So what I do is I generally start my day with about 4 rounds of conscious connected breathing and some retention holds, a little bit of meditation, and then I do this simple practice that I would say I probably do 9 out of 10 times. I'll sometimes add extra things in and sometimes I'll make it a longer practice, but this is my kind of basics I'm going to share with you today. So I generally start with some CatCows because I often wake up with a little bit of a tightness in my back. So for me, this is the best thing to do. So as I come into my cow pose, I do really work on drawing my hands back towards my knees to engage my shoulder blades, and then arching through my spine and lifting my tailbone. And I'll always just see how I'm moving that morning. Every morning is going to be different. Now, as I come into my cat, I'm aiming to round up through my back as much as possible. Now, I'll find that as I move more and more through the positions, my spine will start to become a little more mobile, and then I'll be able to go a little bit deeper. But as I always say, every day is going to be different on your mat. So just see how you're moving. So as you start to warm up, see if you can go a little bit deeper. Can you draw your hands back a little more, engage your shoulder blades more, arch a little more, lift your tailbone a little more. And then as you come into your cat, really try and get some movement throughout. So see how well you round in your shoulder area. See how well you round in your mid back. And see how well you round in your lower back. And you'll find you've got areas that move a little bit easier than the other. The other thing I often do in these poses is I'll take a little bit of a wiggle in my hips. For me, this just feels nice and freeing in my spinal muscles. And again, through my cat, I'll maybe add a little wiggle. Now, one thing that I am big on is wrist mobility and wrist strength, because I do like to do quite a few handstands. So, more often than not, I will do some little rocks backwards and forwards and see how my wrists are feeling that day, just to get some general movement. And then I do tend to be a little bit limited in my extension. So I tend to flip my hands over, placing the back of my hands onto the floor. I'll press down into my heel of my hands and just listen to how my wrists are feeling that day. Get some feedback. If they're feeling okay, I'll maybe walk my knees slightly back, put a bit more pressure down and see if I can lean back a little more. Now when it comes to wrists, just go steady. Really listen to what your body is telling you. Now I say that to every pose, but wrists do tend to be a little delicate. After I've stretched out my wrists, I'll do a little bit of strength work. So for this one, the aim is to keep pressure down over your fingers as you lift the heel of the hand up. So nice and slowly pressing down into my fingers, lifting my heel of the hand, feeling that my weight is forward. So you should start to feel some pressure in your fingers. You should start to feel your forearms working. And if it feels too easy for you, you just take more weight, or take your knees further back, and put more weight into your hands, and then it will be much harder to lift the heel of the hand up. So you just see what you can do at this moment in time. After I've done my wrist mobility, I'll lift up into my down dog, and I almost always start with bent knees. And I'll get some movement through my heels. I do a fair bit of walking, so my calves get quite tight. So I'll maybe hold and explore a bit more of a stretch some days than others. I'll always, usually, that was bad English, I generally sway my hips from side to side to get a little bit of movement through my spinal muscles. And then I tend to have tight shoulders, so I'll move my chest forwards and back, just trying to get a little bit of openness there. And then I'll see what I can achieve in my down dog today. So I'll spread my fingers, push the ground away, lift up through my spine. Really feel like I'm getting height and lifting my butt as high as possible. Keeping that lift
I'll see if I can get my chest to move a little closer to my thighs. And then depending on the day, I'll see if I can straighten my legs and maybe bring a little more weight into the balls of my feet and direct my heels a little closer to the floor. Now some days I'll be able to get my heels down. Some days if my hamstrings are feeling super tight, then it won't happen, and that doesn't matter. I just explore and see how I feel on the day. And then I'll round my body forward into a plank position, work a little bit in my plank, really feeling like I'm protruding my shoulders a little bit for stability, drawing my waist in, or my belly in, strong legs, strong butt. And then I'm going to work my shoulder blades a little. So from here, arms straight, I allow my chest to release to the floor as I squeeze my shoulder blades. And then I'll push the ground away and round my shoulder blades. So I'll just do a few of these just to activate around my scapula. And then I tend to lower myself down, and then I work a little into my Cobra. So I'm quite tight in my thoracic, my upper back, so I'll lift myself up. As I do this, I'm thinking about squeezing my bum, pushing down into my pubic bone, and really rolling my shoulders back and down and lifting through my chest. Now I'll start off low, and then as I feel I'm warming up a little bit, I'm going to go a little bit higher. Now similar to when I was doing my CatCow, I'll get the sense of drawing my hands back to engage my shoulder blades, roll my shoulders back and down, lift my chest a little higher. If things are moving quite well, I'll maybe lift my elbows off the floor, but still keep that action, keep my pubic bone pressing firmly down. And I probably do about 5 of these. I will work nice and slowly, and I'll always listen to how my body is feeling that morning. And say we're all different. It will depend on how you slept, what you did the day before. So always just listen to your body. And then I'll push myself back and I'll take a child's pose. Joining my big toes, take my heels apart, my knees apart. I tend to have a little wiggle, try and get my bum as close to my heels as possible. Stretch my arms forward and really work on length from my hips to my fingertips. Then I can lift my chest, lengthen forward from my belly, my chest, and then bring my head down. Aiming to keep that length in my body, but then relaxing a little into the pose. So allow my belly to release, my chest to release, my armpits to release a little closer to the floor. And then bring my forearms back, keeping my left arm on the floor. I'm going to take my right hand to my head and draw my elbow to elbow, and then I'm going to work on just opening and moving through my thoracic. So squeezing my right shoulder blade up, opening through my right armpit area, and then I'll take my hand up towards the ceiling. Again, taking a little bit more of a squeeze in my right shoulder blade to get that openness. Now I tend to do these nice and slowly. For me, I do have a little tightness in my thoracic, as I mentioned. So I'll squeeze, work slowly, so I'm bringing awareness to my practice. And I'll usually do maybe 4 or 5 of these. Now what I will share is, my left hand side is a little bit tighter. So I do try and do a couple more on this side and work a little deeper. There is a tendency when we've got a more flexible or mobile side to kind of take advantage of that. Whereas we really should be working on our tighter, more inflexible side. So I tend to do an extra couple on this side and just see if I can work a little bit deeper into that tighter end range. And then release. And then from here, I tuck my toes and I bring myself into a deep squat. Now squatting I find is so important for the health of our ankles, our knees, our hips. So I'll first of all encourage a little bit of movement throughout, and then I will just sit in my best pose, trying to get my bum as low as possible, aiming to lift it through my spine a little bit. And
I do try and sit in a squat for at least 5 minutes every day. Now it may not be all done in the morning. If I'm feeling quite tight in the morning, I may choose to do it later in the day, but I'll always explore in the morning and see how it feels, because it's like anything. If I get it done in the morning, I know it gets done. So after I've sat in my squat for a little bit, I'll stretch out my hamstrings. So I tend to straighten up my legs, straighten up my feet. Now, I've had a bit of hamstring tendinopathy in both my hamstrings. It tends to be a bit of a fate of a yogi, I'm afraid, just because we overstretch ourselves. So I tend to keep a little bit of a bend in my knees. I lift my seat bones up towards the ceiling and encourage that sense of length in my hamstrings. I also like to work on that length in my spine. So for me, I just feel like I get a really good stretch through my hamstrings, through my spine in this position. So I'll hold that a little while, and if my hamstrings are feeling good that day, then yes, I may start to straighten my legs, and I may bring myself down into a forward fold. But it all depends on that day. Lifting my seat bones a little higher, allowing my body to come a little lower. And then I've found, for me personally, I prefer to bend my knees and roll myself out of the pose, getting that movement through my spine. Now, I can't show you from here, but I do have a squat rack where I will hang from to work my shoulder blades. Hanging is so good for our shoulder health. So if you've got anything that you can hang from, even if it's just the monkey bars at the local play area, so good. So try and bring a little bit of hanging into your practice as well. So really basic poses, but for me, I just feel so much better if I do those in the morning. So just try and find something that works for you. Work with some poses that you enjoy, because that's going to get you on your mat, and work with a few poses that you know are helpful for your limitations. I don't like calling things limitations, but you know, those things that you struggle a little more with. So get practicing, get on your mat, even if it's just for a few minutes a day. Good luck.